Welcome to the Kindness Factor podcast, sharing life-changing personal stories of the transformational impact of deep kindness. Hosted by
Dr. Elia, the happiness doctor.
And Randy McNeely, the kindness giver. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to another episode of the Kindness Factor podcast. I'm Randy McNeely, your co-host, along with my wonderful co-host, Dr. Elia Gourgouris. And we're in the unique position right now of having the opportunity to interview Dr. Gourgouris, who has been out in Los Angeles, out in the area where they've been, where there's been all the mass destruction and things because of all the fires that have been there. And we decided to do an interview directly with him because he's had some amazing experiences, some challenging, some very heart-wrenching experiences there, but some very amazing experiences with the power of kindness during his time there, and just too powerful not to share. Dr. Elia is a man who is known as Dr. Happiness, the happiness doctor, and he's had so many experiences in the last 2 weeks that have put him through a roller coaster ride of emotions. And it will just warn you now, you may go through a bit of a roller coaster ride yourself, but it'll be worth it. Dr. Elia, thank you so much for taking the time and for being willing to share some of your experiences with us today. So you've been there for what, 2 weeks now? 3 weeks?
Almost 3 weeks now.
Almost 3 weeks. And you've seen a lot. You've seen the devastation. You've seen, the challenges that people are having. In the midst of that, though, you've seen some tremendous amounts of kindness. I wonder if you could share with us, some thoughts about what it's been like and how, even in the midst of the darkness that is the darkness of that challenge, you've been able to see and find the light of kindness.
Thank you, Randy. And, in a lot of ways, this is home for me. I grew up in Santa Monica in Southern California in Pacific Palisades, which, of course, the city of Pacific Palisades has been decimated, most of them burned to the ground. And just to give you how personal this is for me, including my parents, the old home where my parents lived when I was going to UCLA, and that's burned to the ground. 4 out of the 5 homes that I've actually lived in or have been a guest multiple times at dear friends' homes are gone, along with several thousands of other homes in the Pacific Palisades. The one home where I kind of grew up in Santa Monica, in the Santa Monica Canyon, where we call it the Gourgouris compound. There's a front house and a back house. Fortunately, is the one that actually survived. And even though my aunt and uncle, who's 95 and still going strong, God bless him, evacuated, not easy for him, landed him in the hospital. So anyway, they're still evacuated even after 3 weeks, haven't been allowed to be back in their home yet. And, life, the universe, God, it just works in such mysterious ways. We had planned on coming at this time for the month of, January and February to Southern California to kind of escape the cold from Colorado. And boy, did we ever. It was minus 30 degrees about 10 days ago in Colorado, so we did escape some cold. And for us, it was more like a vacation. Our kids are back in Southern California just to feel it out, maybe move back here, who knows. And then the day before we moved here, the fires hit. Of course, my aunt and my uncle, not having a place to stay, kind of homeless, moved into the Airbnb that we had right before we even got here. And then, he ended up going to the hospital. So for my aunt, this has been a safe haven, because the Airbnb is near UCLA. It's literally less than half a mile away from the hospital from my uncle. And she's like, wow, if you guys hadn't booked this Airbnb, I don't know where I would have gone and what would I do? So it hasn't been a vacation. It has been, fun and games. But what it has been is an opportunity to serve other people, not just my family, but dear, dear friends, like very, very close friends who literally have lost everything, every single thing that they own. And then, from there, my sweetheart, my wife, Sona, is, and always has been, so heart-centered. In the middle of all this chaos, fires, the smell, the noise, the ambulances, the fire trucks and so on, last couple of weeks, she comes home, I see her making sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly and some, bologna sandwiches and so on. And goes, you want to go with me to feed the homeless? And boy, are there many homeless, And I said, sure. So we've done that a couple of times, and it's been the most meaningful part of this time here. Uh, it really has been the opportunity to go and walk, the streets and the parks in Santa Monica and, down by the water and spend some time, feeding the homeless. And it's been very, very touching and beautiful in a lot of ways.
I appreciate you sharing that, Elia. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe it's a coincidence that you ended up being there when you were there, having that home, that Airbnb half a mile away from the hospital where your uncle's staying, having a place for your aunt to stay. I'm a firm believer that there is a divine hand that designs our lives, that takes, that is in the details of our lives. And that's just my belief, and I don't believe in coincidence. And the fact that Sona has the heart that she has and has been more than happy, even in the midst of all the challenges, to put together those sandwiches and to say, hey, let's go out and do what we can do, with what little we have right now and what little we can do. Let's go out and do what we can do to help these people. And it's been interesting to me because you've shared a couple of stories with me. Tell me how, would you be willing to share with our audience a little bit about how some of the people have reacted to the willingness that you had to come and share, that to come and give them food and to spend some time with them, to actually notice them, to see them.
Thank you, Randy. And just one more thing before I dive into it. We've been gone from Southern California for 30 years. We have never rented an Airbnb before in the last 30 years. We get back here multiple times every year. Why? Because we usually stay with family and friends and the only reason why we did it this time is because our stay was so extended. We're not staying for 3 or 4 days for a week. We're going to be here for 2 months. We don't want to burden anybody else, friends or family to stay with them for so long. And of course, those homes are all gone except for my aunts and uncles. That's the only home that's left out of all where we usually would normally stay, right? So it's very, very personal. Yeah, a couple of stories. So we're down in Santa Monica, and this is how my wife thinks. Rather than making, let's say one set of sandwiches with the same food, she decided to make two different ones because she wanted to give people the choice. Like if I was doing it, I would just make peanut butter and jelly and make a whole bunch of them, and that's what we give out. She goes, no, I think it's important for people to feel like they have a choice. So as we approached, people down on their luck, we would say, would you like, PB&J or would you like bologna and cheese? And I noticed that when I was looking at them, they actually liked the fact that they got to choose, one or the other. The two stories that I would tell you that were, one of them was I think sort of a young Hispanic gentleman, and he was kind of asleep on the grass, basically had his hat covering his face. And I kind of approached him gently because you don't want to startle anybody else. And I said, would you like a sandwich? And he kind of woke up out of, his slumber a little bit, and we gave him the two options. And he looked at me, he said, can I have both? Which we hadn't heard before from anybody else, would basically imply that I'm hungry. Like I haven't had any food. And of course, we both immediately said, of course, so he gave him PB&J, I gave him the bologna sandwich. And he turned to us and he said, thank you. You saved my life. I was so hungry today. Which when he said that, I got choked up. My wife got choked up. He was so sincere and so humble. And so I think the both the humility and how human that is. I mean, and I'm talking to you, Randy, but also to our listeners. Can you ever remember a time when you were so hungry and you didn't have means to eat something, and then somebody shows up and offers you a choice, and two sandwiches? And I really appreciate the fact that he said, can I have both? Because nobody else had done that. before or after him. And we keep going. We had a few more to give away. There was another beautiful, much older African-American gentleman who had a big smile on his face before we approached him. He was just like, and when we offered that, his response back to Son and I, he goes, "You two are angels. You two are angels." And he kept repeating that. And for me, it's like, I said, "You know what? It takes one to know one." I'm like, "I think you're an angel." And he smiled. His smile got even bigger. And it was this connection, because it's different to give something and walk away without saying anything. The important thing, yes, the standards are important in terms of sustenance and nutrition and so on. But even more important is the heart-to-heart connection. And I tell you, in the midst of all this, those 2 times when we've gone out has been the highlight of this so-called vacation or time away or time with family, time with friends. It has been it just feels just so good in your heart,
Yeah, I love what you said too, is about it creates a connection. I mean, think about this. I can guarantee you that neither the Hispanic man or that black gentleman are going to ever forget you guys. It's a small,
I don't know.
simple experience, but they'll remember you. They'll remember the kindness that you extended toward them. And let me ask you, do you think you'll forget them? Do you think
No, I will never forget them. No, the impact that they had on me, I will never forget them. And so those are 2 very specific, but everybody else that we shared and gave them a choice, they always come back with this beautiful words, "God bless you." It's the only thing that they can give back is "God bless you." Thank you and God bless you. Every single one of them. Thank you and God
all
bless
the blessings you're getting and receiving because they were praying for you. Our audience may or may not be religious, that's okay. But the reality is, I firmly believe, and Dr. Elia firmly believes in the power of prayer. And that simple statement, they're giving what they can give.
Right.
God bless you. I may not have anything else to give. I can't help but think of the story from the Bible when Peter came to the temple and there was a beggar there. He sat there and asked Peter and whoever's with him, for alms, for a gift, for some kind of money or something like that. And Peter looked at him and took him by the hand and said, "Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have, I give thee." He took him by the hand and said, "Rise up, take up your bed and walk." And he cured the man. And anyway, the same thing you're doing. You're giving what you can. It's not like you guys have a whole bunch to hand out. You can't go out and hand out a whole bunch of money to them or things like that. But you guys are giving what you can, and they're giving what they can, and it's creating that bond. It's creating that human connection. That's the thing that's beautiful. That is the power of kindness. It creates those bonds, those irrevocable bonds that people, that ripple out for generations of time. That's what enables you 20 years from now, when you're still the happiness doctor, and smiling, and you'll still remember that story. Hello, my wonderful friends. Thank you for joining us today and for your listening attention as we take a short break to introduce you to our partners in kindness, Kindness Worldwide. I invite you to listen to this little video clip, and if what you hear resonates, please take the time to go and visit Kindness Worldwide and make a donation to help them in their mission to create cultures of kindness in communities around the world. No donation is too small, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much for your kindness.
When a wallet was returned just moments after it was lost, a purpose was found. This one act of kindness inspired the formation of the nonprofit Kindness Worldwide to create a culture of kindness in communities throughout the world. Kindness Week Worldwide mobilized the entire community in York, Pennsylvania, featuring initiatives and playbook programs including blood drives, kindness cards, K-12 and college students embracing kindness, and an innovative means of community policing, kindness citations. If something so magical can happen in York, Pennsylvania, the same and other inspirations can happen anywhere and everywhere. Our Screen Scenes initiative featuring the Kindness Factor will showcase these many stories of kindness. Let's include your community among them. Kindness is the heartbeat of the world. Together, with your support, we can make all its hearts beat as one.
You know what was beautiful is like after we finished the African American, it was the last one it was our last sandwiches basically. So now we're walking back towards the car and we go past this young Hispanic gentleman that asked for both, and he had devoured them both. He was finishing up the second one because you could just tell. But the minute he saw us from afar, it's recognizing us. You know, he broke into a big smile and he's waving, and we waved back, and it was like again. Like, you know, this recognition and this warm feeling in your heart that I will never forget. So I told Sonia, I said, honey, I think we just need to do that every single week we're here, for as long as we're in Los Angeles and as long as we can. Let's just keep doing that. So we're going there actually tomorrow to do it again. And because it's the right thing to do. That's how I see it. It's the right thing to do. There's, you know, you and I have this saying that we both know, because we have been given much, we too must give.
Yeah.
And that to me is the way to live life. When you're down and out, I can promise you there's somebody else who's more down and out than you. All you have to do is look around. And the quickest way to feel better in the midst of this, you know, dystopian kind of place, because you know the fires were so intense, the destruction was so massive, 15,000 homes. It's unimaginable. It really is. It's unimaginable. Yet in the middle of all that, the best of the best happens in terms of humanity. Well, there was another fire, another one in Palisades, but in Altadena, which is kind of near Pasadena, more inland, and the word got out, and very close to the Rose Bowl, the iconic Rose Bowl, right? One of the biggest stadiums in the country where the Rose Bowl game takes place in Pasadena. The parking lot opened up, and there were like literally thousands of people that donated food and clothing and items. I'm talking about like, which is a massive parking lot, by the way. I mean, imagine a stadium that seats 100,000 people. You can imagine how big the parking lot is. It was packed. People came and donated more things than, in the end, they had donated more than what was actually what the people who were left without a home, homeless, were able to take and address. So to me, it's not even about Sona and I, it's about how humanity shows up when a crisis or I mean, it's more than a crisis, it's devastating. Unless you see it with your own eyes, it's hard to believe. It's hard. Even when you watch it on TV, go, "Oh, that's terrible." When you actually see it, you walk around, you smell it, and you see it's hard to describe.
I don't think there's any way. I know I can't begin to comprehend what it must be like without being there. I don't think our audience will be able to comprehend that. But just hearing the stories, I love what you just shared. And you think about it, in the midst of all these challenges, what was it that happened to bring all those people together? Love for their fellow human beings. I don't think there was, let me ask you, do you think there was anybody at the outside of the parking lot asking, are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you black or white? Are you Chinese? Are you Hispanic? Are you Latino, Asian?
No, people just brought whatever they had,
nobody cared.
They had and donated it. Nobody cared.
Are you rich or poor? Nobody asked those questions. All they cared about was the fact that there were human beings there that needed help and needed food, needed supplies, needed things to be able to help them to carry on and cope through whatever is going to come in the next months. I can't help but think, James Woods, the actor, lost his home. There was an article about him talking about when
he didn't lose his home. I think he went back. He thought he lost his home.
Thought he'd lost. Okay.
He went back and he didn't. His home was still intact for some reason. But when he was broadcasting with the fire, he thought he had lost his home. I mean, he had helped somebody else actually, and saved his life, an older gentleman who had lived on his street. But I think his home somehow survived, or parts of his home. I don't remember the exact anyway, go ahead. Yeah, it's
Well, what was amazing is he said, you know, in the midst of all this, when we're all supposed to be evacuating, stuff like that, nobody cared about who was Democrat or Republican. Nobody cared if I was an actor or if I was rich or famous or poor. We were all just neighbors. We were all human beings helping each other. That is the power of kindness. That is the power. And it's sad. The reality is, it's terribly sad that it takes a tragedy like this to bring out the
the
best
best.
in people. The reality is, every day we should be looking for opportunities to create kindness experiences. Why? Because it's those experiences that create the ripple effect, the pay it forward feeling that brings out the best in people. Think about what would happen if we were always, every day, striving to do things that would bring out the best in people around us. Not waiting for a tragedy or not waiting for, it's the other thing, you know, special holidays, Christmas time, we see the same kind of feeling come out and think, what if we could have that feeling all year round? The fact is, we can if we're willing to put forth the effort. And it does take effort. It takes courage to be kind in the face of challenges and adversity. It takes much greater courage to be kind in a contentious situation than it does to be angry. Anybody can get angry easily. But in that situation, when you're facing contention, having the courage to step back and be self aware enough to say, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to extend the hand of kindness, which is the hand of love in this situation. That takes a lot of courage and a lot more, you know, as it only comes with practice. There's a lot more people that highly, that's why we're doing what we're doing, to encourage as many people as we can to develop that courage, to step into the shoes of a kindness hero like you've been doing, Elia.
I
Like
don't
you've
feel
been
like I'm a
doing.
kindness hero, though. I think that anybody can do what I did, or my wife
Exactly.
did.
Anybody can if they're willing to do it.
And it's not even that big of a sacrifice. I mean, she makes the sandwich. We drive down there. It takes 15 minutes to get down to the Santa Monica, and then it takes maybe half an hour to pass everything out. It's not that much time, honestly.
When you think
But
of for little
if you look
time,
around, I guess what I want to say, if you look around, regardless of what community you're in, I mean, that happens to be a very wealthy community, obviously down there. But it doesn't matter what community. If you look around, I guarantee you will find somebody to help anywhere in the world, in
there are always,
any country, any city, any town, any municipality, any neighborhood. There's always somebody that we can help, and it doesn't require a big financial burden on us to do that. It just requires an open heart and a willingness to look, to analyze, perhaps to see, and then move into action. Because you say this all the time, Randy. Kindness is love in action. That's all it is, and
exactly,
that's it.
exactly. Well, and you think about it, all it takes, you know, we talk about random acts of kindness all the time. People, you use that term, and and I'm not knocking the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation or anything like that, but that term drives me crazy. And here's why. The reality is there are no random acts of kindness. Every time somebody gives kindness away, they choose to do that. It's a choice. The fact that what is random, though, there are random opportunities to be kind that present themselves all the time. And what you said is the key. You have to have your eyes open and be looking for them. Those opportunities are there. I can't tell you, and you know this is true, Elia, how many times we've heard people say that they have realized a lot more kindness opportunities were there when they actually started intentionally looking for them. Things that were there before that they weren't seeing because they weren't paying attention. That's the difference is taking the time to put what I call, and Elia heard me say this before, put your kindness antennas up and be looking for those random opportunities. And then do exactly what Elia said, go into action. Act on as many of them as reasonably possible. There's no way we can act on all the opportunities that come, because I can guarantee you, I can promise you that when you open your eyes to look, opportunities to give kindness will seem like they're popping out of the woodwork. And you won't be able to do all of them, but do as many as you reasonably can. And there's a promise that we can both give because we've experienced it. And any of you, I know that the greater majority of our audience has experienced this. When you give kindness away, give love away, it always, always, always comes back. It always comes back. It's like a boomerang. It always comes back. And most of the time, if you cast the boomerang out there, it's going to come back not only with the boomerang, but it's going to come back all polished and looking great and with more for you than it had when it went out. Or if the old statement, cast your bread upon the water, and it comes back to you again. When you cast it on the water, it's going to come back to you and it's going to be buttered and toasted and have jelly on it. And it's going to be fantastic.
And I also think, Randy, is like it's there by the grace of God go I. That's how I see it. Like in the end, we're all beggars, in some ways, if you think about it. And we've all been on the receiving end of somebody else's kindness throughout our life. And we know what that feels like. I can't say that I've been homeless. Got close once when I was
Very
younger.
close.
But for me, we had this experience just an hour ago. So, we're in the car, we are at a stoplight, and there's this lady with a sign, and she's going between cars, and as she's getting closer, we're like the fourth car from the red light, basically. And you can just read, I'm hungry. I don't have, I have a family to feed, just anything would help. And it was just with little hearts and all that stuff. So I rolled down the window and gave her something. And before the light turned green, she turned to both Son and I, and she said, God bless you and your family 5 times. Like she kept repeating it over, all to the point where it made me uncomfortable a little bit. But you can see how sincere she was for, a few dollars that I gave her it was nothing for us, honestly. And yet it meant the world to her. And this literally happened like an hour ago. Those opportunities exist all the time. You go out there and you look around, I promise you. And I've had people in the past say, well, especially if somebody looks like they're maybe either intoxicated or, disheveled or whatever the case may be, it's like, well, they're just going to use it to go drink or buy drugs or whatever. You know what? It's not my place to judge. It's not my place to judge. I don't care what happens after I help somebody else. That's their decision. My responsibility is to help my fellow human beings, my brothers and sisters, and that's where it ends. There's no judgment at all about anything towards anyone like that.
Amen. My goodness, my friend, you just laid down the nuggets. That's we're going to have to, because we're at that time now. Time has flown. We could keep talking for a long time. But before we leave, do you have a couple of extra nuggets that you'd like to share with our audience, just to leave them some food to munch on afterwards?
I think that life is too short, Randy, and as I'm getting older and grayer and so on, I recognize that. I feel a certain urgency to do even more, to help even more. And it's first of all, it's the quickest way to forget yourself. If you're down and if you're not feeling well, let's say you're kind of depressed or sad or whatever, the quickest way to get out of that is to go help somebody else. That I've done this over and over again in my life. Forget yourself and help somebody else, and notice how you feel afterwards. You feel like $1,000,000. So that's one. I always say, do not procrastinate your happiness. I'm going to tweak that a little bit just for this show and just for you, Randy. Do not procrastinate your kindness towards others. Today is the day, this time, this hour, this minute. Go out there and see what happens and connect. It's so beautiful when you connect. When you do something with somebody else that they can't do anything back in return, it's even more special. Because the only thing they can really give in return is God bless you and your family. That's it. And that's the exchange. And it's just so beautiful. So I would implore you, not just around Christmas time or just some special holiday, regardless of what this person may look different from you, different race, different culture, different this, different that, different. It doesn't matter. In the end, we're all brothers and sisters. So do the right thing. And as you perform, like Randy said, those mindful, conscious acts of kindness, that's love in action. And there's no better feeling than that, ever.
Can't close it on a better note than that. Thank you so much, Elia, for your time. Thank you to our audience. I want to really say, let you know how much we appreciate you taking the time to listen. You didn't have to be doing this. You could be doing something else, but I invite you to take the time to stop and think consider 3 things. What have I learned today? How is it applicable to me? And what am I going to do about it? Make a plan. Go forth, as our good friend Barry Shore says, go mad, go make a difference. And
Go mad.
remember, with kindness,
everybody
everybody
wins.
wins.
It's so true. It's so
Thank-
true. We're in the middle of that right now. It's so true.
Thank you.
Amen.